Your favorite artist who is a member of 2 or more bands.
Yeah, that's wild. I went with it was hard on this one because I wasn't sure if that was a current member, like he's currently in at least 2 bands, or has been a member of a bunch of bands over time. Meeting both of those criteria, I chose John Dwyer of OCs, DOCs, OCS, Spank and Brown and the Coach Whips, and then all of his wacky, like, sort of improv side project. But John Dwyer, OCs, OCS. I mean, I've been buying his records religiously for 20 years now. One of only 2 times that I've lost a shoe in a mosh pit. Yeah, it's great.
That was a weird one for me because I picked George Clinton, but it was Funkadelic and Parliament, and it was basically the same band, switching out a few people. But I'm gonna put that in because it was 2 different genres. It was 2 different styles. So George Clinton, he's in that world.
Favorite artist who is a member of 2 or more bands. Bootsy Collins, man. James Brown's band and Funkadelic. You don't get better than Bootsy. And I own a bass. I don't call it a bass player, but there's no one better than Bootsy.
Your favorite artist who is a member of 2 or more bands.
Bob Weir. See, I'm trying not to be so repetitive. I'm hoping I have so many more options. Yeah. Thought I had another one and I didn't write it down and I should have. But
I think Bob Weir just
Rat Dog, Wolf Brothers,
I think he's like the perfect rhythm guitarist.
I think so. And well, also it's just something about his voice and just, I don't know. His being, yeah.
I don't know anybody who's been in more bands than David Pajo, so I'm going to have to go with Dave Pajo, our own, Louisville's own Dave Pajo, now based in Los Angeles. He most recently played with Gang of Four, but he's played with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Interpol. Of course, he was in Slint, Maurice, Dead Child. He was the drummer for my band, Rising Shotgun. He's played with everyone. Yeah.
Struggled with this one too, but there's Elf, there's Rainbow, Black Sabbath, and there's Dio. So Roddy James Dio for the win for me.
Okay.
Beatles or Stones?
Neither.
That's what I said. I said, nope.
That's all I said. I just never really listened to them, either one enough to even where the hype. I still tried to, man, people get mad at me, but I've never listened to a whole Beatle record all the way through.
Not once.
Not one.
Maybe you should try.
Yeah. And I'm not listening to a Stones record all the way through.
Okay.
I know there's singles, but I've never bought an album, like kind of stuck it on.
I went back and forth. I put Beatles first, crossed it off, and I'm sticking with the Stones. Or I don't know. Maybe I need to go back to the Beatles. Did anyone have a solid answer for that one?
Beatles or Stones? Have you seen my record label? Logo. That's all you need. No, Stones forever. No contest.
If only for cultural impact, I got to give the nod to the Beatles.
This was tougher than it's ever been. My answer has always been and remains Stones, but I've never been more into the Beatles and I've never been a Beatles hater. They were never as important to me as the Rolling Stones were, but since Surface Noise opened, Beatles records, for whatever reasons, I don't know if it has to do with Capitol or Apple, their records really hold up. Even when and Beatles records, even when they're trashed, they still hold some value. So I have to listen to almost every Beatles record that comes in here just to audition it for, pricing and quality. And so since the store opened, I've just listened to tons of Beatles records in here. And when no one's in here, I've been known to crank a Beatles records at excruciating volume, and mainly the guitar tones on those records. But even the early Beatles stuff I'm not as into, they're just some of the best sounding records. So maybe I'm a George Martin fan as much as I'm a Beatles fan, but man, I can't get over how great Beatles records sound these days. Though in terms of the musical compositions, I still probably fall more on the Stones side. But the Beatles are fresher to me because I've had all those Stones records memorized since I was a teenager. And a lot of the Beatles stuff remains quasi-new to me.
I like them both. And honestly, it's kind of a coin flip on choosing one of the over the other. I own more Rolling Stones records. I own more of those simply because there are 4 times as many Stones records as there are Beatles records. Push comes to shove, I'm probably taking 1966 to 1969 from the Beatles in terms of the time period. But I think Exile is maybe the best record that any of them I ever did. So I'll go Beatles. But that's a 16 days out of the month I'm a Beatles person, and 14 days out of the month I'm a Rolling Stones person.
I feel like the Stones invented rock music. I mean, you could say the Beatles did. And, Your Blues, Helter Skelter, Dig a Pony, there are Beatles songs that have that malevolence and that monolithic hugeness that to me distinguishes rock from rock and roll, But I feel like the Stones codified rock music as something big and scary and very sexual. I mean, rock and roll was sexual too. But, the Beatles were always cute in some regard. Blame Paul McCartney or Ringo if you must. But the Stones had that danger, and sex and danger is probably what I value most in rock music, and I feel like the Stones were the first ones to grab that ball and run with it.
I just found a bag of weed. What am I going to listen to? It's going to be Quasimodo's Further Adventures, Madlib. This is his weird alter ego. It is just a fun and weird and enjoyable rap record.
Rusty Bryant's Fire Eater. It's all right.
I feel like there's stereotypical answers, like Dark Side of the Moon. But to me, whatever I'm in the mood for, you know what I mean? It could be so many albums, but probably Uncle John's Band.
Well, since I've never smoked weed, nor drank or been high in that world, but all my friends that ever smoked weed, they listen to Maggot Brain. Funkadelic to Maggot Brain. And that was always the association, like, dang, that's what y'all did, sit around and listen to that record. I'm listening to it for the fact it was good. They're like, no, all my high school friends get high and listen to that record.
Huh?
And feel rock and roll. They felt that was the only thing that could match up, anything else they wanted to dance to. This was a record they could sit around and listen to.
Okay.
Kind of funky, kind of cool.
Anything from my collection that's entertaining, but PM Dawn's The Bliss album, genre bending, kind of psyche, hip hop, neo soul. That's probably, I'm changing my answer up from what I wrote down earlier today. But as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, it's like an hour and 5 minutes long, so it would be a good ride. Yeah, PM Dawn's Bliss album.
Matches burning. Who cares what I'm listening to? I got a bag of weed. Like the music's secondary.
An album from 1980s that I still listen to, Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full. I listened to it when it came out, listened to it college years, listened to it in my adult years, and I listened to it like last week. So I can always find something new. Rakim's complex lyrics, you can always find and hear something new that you never heard before on every listen.
In Excess, The Swing. Great album. I'm a big NXS fan as well.
Were they from Australia?
I think so.
I think they were. And then that guy tragically died.
Oh, Michael Hutchins, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a sad story.
it is.
Oh, the answer to that is 1,000 plus of them. 80s is kind of 1982 to 1987 is that's my specialty. Oh my God, I could rattle off like 50 of them right now. The Falls, This Nation's Saving Grace, any of the first 5 Echo and the Bunnymen records, anything from Depeche Mode anything from Depeche Mode, period. But Violator. What did I actually write down for this? I wrote down the Disintegration by The Cure from 1989. I probably listen to that album 3 or 4 times a month. It's not my favorite Cure album, but it is probably the thing from the 80s that I'm still listening to the most at this point.
An album from the 80s that you still listen to.
Daggone Prince Controversy. You know, that was another one that, like, even though I liked his very first, that's one that, like, oh man, he done kind of captured an audience. And
Was Dirty Mind the first one? What was the first one? Or is it just Prince?
just Prince.
Well, 1981, it's their second album, but it's the self-titled The Blasters.
Okay.
Just because it's good old rock and roll.
The first one that popped into my head was Up on the Sun by Meat Puppets. But really anything on SST. To me, the 3 great eras of the American underground, and I'm sorry, Cleveland in advance. You got Detroit circa 68 to 72. You got New York circa 74 to 77. And then you got the SST scene in the cusp of the 70s into the early 80s with Black Flag, Meat Puppets, Minutemen, Husker Du, Dinosaur, Sonic Youth, Saccharine Trust. So anything on SST, that's the 80s to me. I know to a lot of people the 80s is more like the synth pop kind of. And honestly, a lot of that stuff that I was too punk rock for then sounds incredible to me now. All of a sudden, I'm a Duran Duran fan, you know, Flock of Seagulls, a lot of 80s music that I was too cool for then, I love now. I mean, I love the Smiths, I love Prince. I wasn't a total punk rock snob, but the 80s to me is probably, you know, Birthday Party, Nick Cave, and SST was what I was, and Devo still was what I was obsessed with in the 80s.